Today you are you, and that is truer than true. There's no one alive that is youer than you. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to your favorite weekly podcast, Refreshingly Idiotic. It's your girl Hana as your host today, and today's episode is all about Dissociative Identity Disorder. The name has recently been changed, so you might know it better as split personality disorder, or if you're a reader, then as the Jekyll and Hyde disorder. Let's get into it right after we roll intro music. The question of the episode is cook or order in. I know a lot of people my age, mid-teens, like to order in or like eat out. I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, like, we're in a pandemic right now, so I don't know how much they can eat out, but like, yeah, order in, I guess. So like, they're like too lazy to cook, or they just want that pizza or the Osmos. I don't know what everybody else is eating right now, but like, I'm really craving Osmos at the moment. I'm also fasting, so that's probably not something I should say. I don't even know why I picked this question for today. I should have known I was fasting. Moving on, I would rather cook because I feel like I can understand what goes into my food. I can also like waste a lot of time making my food before I actually eat. I'm actually like one of those people that like, if I didn't have to eat to stay alive, I probably wouldn't. I'm not a huge fan of eating. Like right now, I'm honestly kind of hungry, but like, I could live with this feeling. Like, I'm functioning fine. If I could stay like this and like not have to eat, like only drink water, water is my best friend. I am getting off track again. Anyways, yeah, so like a while back I made vegan spaghetti and meatballs. I spent so long making it. I think I spent like 4 or 5 hours, to be honest. Like, not fully like standing up in the kitchen, but like that's how long the cook time was. So first of all, I had to like get all the ingredients, and then I had to like mush together everything for the vegan meatball, and then I had to chill it. And then in the meantime, I made marinara sauce from scratch, and then I had to make the meatballs into like actual balls so it wouldn't be like a little bit of a mess. And then I used to bake them until they were halfway cooked, which honestly you could have ate them raw because there wasn't any chicken or anything in it. And then I would fry them for that extra crispiness in coconut oil or avocado oil. I actually don't remember which one we had at the moment, but like I probably used one of those two. Yeah, and then I had to like boil the pasta, and then like, yeah. So it was honestly such a good meal. I kind of craving it right now again. Watch me be saying that I could live without food and then tell you I'm craving it. Anyways, today's episode is all about dissociative identity disorder, and as I just mentioned, better known as split personality disorder. I know up until I was researching this episode, I actually didn't know it was called dissociative identity disorder, so that was a new thing for me. It had actually just recently been changed, I believe this year or last year, so it is fairly new, so I wouldn't judge you for not knowing. For the rest of this episode, we're gonna go over the definition, Jekyll and Hyde, risks, symptoms, types, how it's diagnosed, what it can lead to, treatments, and common questions. Starting off with the definition, DID is a mental illness disorder that causes disassociation in your mind, so disrupting the connections in your brain to like your old memories, your feelings, and your identity, so personality. Now, I don't usually start with a media example, but I think this one heavily relates to understanding the whole entire disorder, so I'm going to talk about Jekyll and Hyde next. So let me just explain the two main characters. Dr. Jekyll. He was a very introverted doctor, researcher, and he was very quiet, nervous, very shy person. So like me when I was in elementary school. Not relating. And then there was Mr. Hyde. He's a very outgoing, also evil, not very nice man who was very egotistical. So as you can tell, these characters are already just like polar opposites. Now, what would you say if I told you they were the exact same person? So the story goes that Dr. Jekyll was working on a serum that when he injected himself, he could boost his confidence. Now, here's what happened. It worked for him, but then later on, he was able to switch without realizing it into Mr. Hyde without even injecting himself. So it became a huge issue. Neither of them remembered each other, and then they didn't know what happened while they were the other person, and they actually had very different looks as well. So Mr. Hyde had like that broader shoulders, the more muscles, more like a bodybuilder, you could say. And then Dr. Jekyll had glasses, he was very skinny, shrimpy, They got away with the switching for about a year before anybody actually realized that that was happening and they were the same person. But then they got caught when Mr. Hyde actually murdered somebody and the police got involved and it was discovered. And then based off that story, that's where this personality disorder was named Jekyll and Hyde. Next up is risks. If you're a person who had a very traumatic childhood, whether you're physically, sexually, or mentally abused, that could be a huge player. Overcoming very heavy pressure at a very young age to be like perfect, for example, or people that already have PTSD, which also like comes around in the same category. But if you've had a lot of pressure, if you're being expected of, if you are going through something traumatic, these are all things that lead to dissociative identity disorder. As for symptoms, they obviously vary between the different types, and there's multiple different types, which I'll get into later on. But some general ones are maybe feeling detached from your life. So like you feel like you're there, but like you're not actually there, which is a feeling that I think that everybody's felt at some point in their life, whether it be like a quick momentarily thing or like a longer period of time. And then there's memory loss, so you might lose time, like I mentioned in Jekyll and Hyde's story. So let's say like you switch to the other personality and you actually have no idea what happened while you were in that other personality. You probably have increased level of stress. One, because you're losing time and you're not feeling that great. So you're like, what happened? And you're focusing on that. But there's also multiple other reasons why you might have that increased level of stress. You might have blurred understandings of your identity. So like, yes, you have two very separate identities. One which might be a very shy person and then a very outgoing person. But like, you won't really understand the difference and realize that there are two different people in your mind. Now that I've mentioned the symptoms, let's get into the different types. There are three main types. The first one is dissociative identity disorder. So this is the one that was considered multiple personality disorder or split personality disorder. So this one, you have multiple distinct personalities or the voices in your head. These two very different people might have like completely different names. How they might sound might be different. Like some people will have like a very high-pitched voice versus a very low-pitched voice, even though they're in the same body, but they sound very different. And then it can even go as far as the physical changes. Like, for example, eyesight. So, like, maybe in one personality, your eyesight is totally fine, but when you're in that other personality, your vision is blurry and you need your glasses. The next one is depersonalized derealization disorder. So depersonalization is the feeling like, is that out of body feeling when you're feeling detached, like you don't feel like you're actually there even though you are. It's like an out of body experience. And then there is derealization, which is feeling unreal, so almost like an out of body experience, so it goes hand in hand with depersonalization. And it's thinking everything around you isn't really happening. So it might just be like a figment of your imagination. You know those kids that have like really crazy imaginations? That could be like one of the first signs. You might feed into it and grow up like that and actually end up believing that like nothing around you is actually real. You're just imagining it. So when you're in that stressful situation, you're like, oh, I'm just imagining it. It'll go away in a little bit. So you might not be feeling so great, and like you might be in a group of people and you could be like, yeah, I'm totally here, but you're actually so distant from the truth and you don't actually know what's going on. You're just kind of out of it. Like, you know when you zone out of class? That, but like maybe like all of the time and not just because you're bored. The third and final type is dissociative amnesia. So this is like amnesia from a certain type of event. Usually it's traumatic, but it can also be positive. So this one goes in hand with everything else that I've mentioned. So you might not be aware where you were, you might have lost time. You can be very selective in the things that you remember, even if you don't have that second personality. There's 3 subsections into this. So there's selective, where you're not remembering just like one certain time, so you can remember before and after it, or an event similar to it, but it's just that one event that your brain has completely blocked out. Another one can be localized, so just like a certain type of events, like let's say you go on a school field trip, which is an odd example that just came to mind, but like every time you go on a school field trip, you don't remember what happened. And then generalized, which is the third type, you've completely forgotten your personality, your identity, or things like that. You just don't feel like yourself. Maybe you've forgotten your name and you're just like completely lost. Now that you know about the different types, how is it diagnosed? So obviously you can listen to the symptoms and see if you match up with a huge deal of them, and then you can also Google more and see like, oh yeah, these all match me, or like most of them match me. So obviously you would have to go to a doctor and make sure that you're actually getting diagnosed by a healthcare professional. But other things are like doctors will rule out any physical reasons that you might have these symptoms. So like maybe like a brain tumor or a concussion, for example. And then they might recommend you to a mental health professional or a mental health specialist for a psych evaluation to see that if you have DID or if it is something else. Once they've figured out if you have DID or if you have any other mental illness, they'll diagnose you and provide you with the right treatments to help you get better. Let's say you do have DID. What would you have to be more alert for? So some worries might be other mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, PTSD, or eating disorders. These are all like very vague examples that I've already covered in the podcast, but you can always like look at them and be like, yeah, like if I'm losing time and I'm not feeling so great about it, maybe I might just start to get depression. Anxiety might be like, I know that I'm switching, I'm losing time because of it, but so what am I doing when I'm that other personality? That can cause a lot of anxiety. It can also cause bipolar disorder because that uneasiness about not knowing where you are, what you're doing, and things like that might just cause those extra hormonal fluctuations. It can also cause suicidal or self-harm impulsions, or even the thought to hurt others. You might not feel so great and you just might want to end it or hurt yourself to feel some sort of other thing. This one is less common, but you might want to hurt others to like reduce your pain. Another thing is alcohol abuse. So you might be like, oh, I'll just have a drink and feel better. Tremendous, sorry. Just have a drink and you'll feel better. Okay, we're not singing here, and this is like a really bad spot to sing, but like, yeah, alcohol abuse. So like you might get more prone to it for coping mechanisms, but it's also like really bad for you. Some other things might be physical symptoms. So like a panic attack has multiple symptoms like dizziness, lightheadedness, nausea maybe, and all of these symptoms, you can see them in physical symptoms. If you have DID, you might be more prone to other personality disorders. So like the last two episodes, schizophrenia and borderline personality disorder. And lastly, it might lead to more sleep disorders because you might just have trouble. Like let's say your split personality comes out in like the middle of the night, so you're not sleeping at that time, then you are losing a lot more sleep and you might just have less energy, and we all know how much less sleep can deprive you of your nutrition. You don't have time to have your body repair or regenerate to feel better. Okay, now maybe you've been diagnosed. You know that you have DID. Now what treatments can you do to help yourself feel better? You can do cognitive behavioral therapy, which is also known as talk therapy, which is like always mentioned in all of my episodes. It's something I want to get deeper into. I'll probably have an episode later on just about cognitive behavioral therapy, because it is one of those therapy sessions that you can always benefit from, even if you don't have a mental illness. I actually very much enjoyed it when I was younger, and I'm actually trying to get back into it. Another one is hypnotherapy. So this can help you regain your memories that you might have lost, or find out the truth of other memories. So figuring out what actually happened if you have like bits and pieces of it. The third type is adjunative therapy. So this one is a movement therapy to help people reach the part of their minds that they might have disconnected from because of this disorder. So this will help them regain their focus, any memories they might have lost, any like reason why they might have more personalities than just one. Now to finish off today's episode, I thought I would talk about some common questions. This isn't something I've always done, but I think this one would be really cool because a lot of people don't really know the difference between their personality disorders. So one, it's the same as schizophrenia. It's not. Schizophrenia does mean split mind, but it means that in a psychosis episodes, it's not in personalities. Another misconception is that people with DID are very violent. Like, yes, in the media they are portrayed as very violent people, but in reality they can be as normal as anybody else, and it's actually often hard to detect because people don't know. Like in that Jekyll and Hyde example, they went on a year without getting caught. Third is that it's very easy and clear to diagnose. You'd think that, right? But it's not. Sometimes you can have it for years before you're diagnosed correctly, because a lot of people will be like, oh no, it's just borderline personality disorder or schizophrenia, and it's just like, or maybe it's depression, and nobody really thinks of DID firsthand, so it can take a while. I think that just about wraps up today's episode. We talked about the definition, Jekyll and Hyde, risks, symptoms, types, how it's diagnosed, what it can lead to, treatments, and common questions / misconceptions. This episode was probably one of my favorites because I learned so much. Dissociative identity disorder or split personality disorder is thrown around so much in the media especially, and I've never actually known what it was, so to find out like what it means and the insides of it, I found that so cool. So definitely, I know I definitely learned something, and hopefully you guys are learning something from each episode. So drop the favorite fact that you learned in this episode, along with answering the question of the episode, which was cook or order in, and as always, the highlight and lowlight of your week. My contact info is in the description below, and website is on its way up very soon, so I'll drop in the link as soon as I can. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and rate. 5 stars only, pretty please, with a cherry on top. Bye guys!